The Souls games aren't shy of sad, depressing moments, because while the story may not be upfront and direct, we tend to get attached to some of the characters and their quest. However, unfortunately, this man does not like happy endings. So most of these characters, whether side ones or bosses, usually have their story end in tragedy, either due to background lore or actions that took place in the game itself. And because of this, in today's video I'm going to talk about some of the most depressing and saddening moments that stood out to me throughout the entire Souls series. We can't talk about the saddest Soulsborne moments without mentioning Sigurd reuniting with Yorm. Without context, Yorm may just look like your typical boss. But if you've been following Sigurd's questline, the fight takes on a whole new meaning. Sigurd isn't just a funny onion knight, he's a friend to Yorm. Years ago, Yorm chose to link the fire to save his people, and in return, they turned on him when chaos struck. Sigurd was one of the few who stood by him, and before Yorm came back, Sigurd made a promise to put his friend to rest if he ever lost his mind. So when you step into the arena, and Sigurd shows up sword in hand, the same sword that was given to him by Yorm, this moment is kinda crushing. He doesn't scream, he doesn't gloat, he's talking to Yorm but in a really mellow tone. It's calm and respectful, and it's also heartbreaking. And when the fight ends, Sigurd sits down exhausted and passes away. He fulfills his promise, and without nothing left, he just dies. That's not just a boss fight. That's the end of a bond between two friends who tried to do the right thing in a world that's cruel as hell. Which is why I definitely had to put it on this list. Father Gascoigne is one of the first major bosses you face in the game, and definitely one of the most unforgettable. And one of the main reasons why that is not just because of something in the fight itself, but actually outside of it. You see, the lore behind this encounter in Gascoigne himself is a bit tragic. What really makes this whole thing hurt is the tiny optional detail waiting back in Central Yharnam, a young girl hiding in her home. She's scared, alone, and gives you a music box to help find her parents. She says the tune is something her father used to listen to, hoping it will bring him back to his senses, and if you bring the music box to the fight with Gascoigne, it actually stuns him for a bit. And in that moment you realize that there's still some humanity left in him. After you kill him, you can actually find his wife's body on a roof nearby. But that's not the sad part. You can return to the girl and tell her the truth or lie. Either way, things don't end up well for her. Later on, by traversing the sewers, you can find a red ribbon near a giant pig. It's strongly implied that the girl died, mauled, or eaten by the pig. It's easy to miss the entire subplot, but what makes it really hit hard is that it's not in your face, but it's rather optional. But if you connect the dots, it's one of the most devastating stories FromSoft has ever put in a game. While Sif may not be a hard boss in terms of mechanics, he is emotionally. I swear, this has to be one of my least favorite bosses in the entire game, not because it's bad or anything, but mostly because I hate the fact that I have to kill him. Sif is a loyal wolf guarding the grave of his master Artorias. You don't want to kill him, and he also don't want to kill you either, but both of you have to. And then the DLC changes everything. If you played it first, you meet a younger version of Sif trapped in the abyss, and you have the option to save him. And years later, when you meet him again in the present, he's much older, stronger, and way larger than before. And the crazy part is, the cutscene actually changes, because Sif recognizes you. Sif walks into the arena, pauses for a moment, and lets out a howl. He's not angry or feral, but he knows he has to stop you to protect Artorias' legacy. This cutscene hits like a truck. Suddenly, this isn't just a boss fight, but more of a reunion, a painfully tragic one at that. And by the end, when Sif starts limping, barely able to swing his sword, man, it's just heartbreaking. And that's what makes it hurt so much, and I'll never forgive FromSoft for making me have to kill him. In Dark Souls 1, after passing through Blighttown and defeating Quelaag in her cave, beneath this area holds a fair lady. She's half spider, half human, poisoned and suffering, and barely able to speak. However, unlike her sister, she's rather peaceful, and if you offer her humanity, she starts to regain her strength. She represents a small piece of kindness in a very miserable world. But despite you killing her sister Quelaag, she doesn't hate you or hold a grudge. She doesn't even attack you. She just sits in her lair waiting for someone who probably isn't coming back. The only time she's indirectly hostile to you is when Kirk, one of her servants, invades you. But the reason why he does this is a bit emotional, as he only invades so that he can get enough humanities to heal her. And it's not like she's the one telling him to do this. Also, with a certain ring, you can finally hear her voice, and she sounds so frail. But that's not the sad part. In Dark Souls 3, while going through the catacombs, you'll find her body, lifeless and curled up near the ruins of demons. The fact that there was no build-up, music, or anything kinda made this part sad, as it's just a reminder that the world of Dark Souls is just cruel. So yeah, this moment, I know it wasn't super crazy or super like depressing, but still kind of emotional seeing her body just there in Dark Souls 3. The giant blacksmith in Orlando is one of those characters that sticks with you not because of some grand story, but because of how peaceful he is. He hums while he works, he's kind to the player, and in a world full of betrayal and backstabbing, he's just good. He just wants to keep smithing, upgrading, and making weapons. And it's comforting finding someone so genuine in a place like Orlando. And in the game as a whole, since everything here just wants to kill you. But similar to the Fair Lady, in Dark Souls 3 when you revisit Orlando, he's gone. All that's left is his body slumped over the same place he worked. There's no explanation on how he dies. It could be that it was because of old age, or it could be that he was just killed. Either way, he's gone. What makes this more touching is the dialogue you get from Andre after bringing him back to his ashes. All in all, this part really stood out to me on an emotional level. Alexander is one of the most lovable characters in Elden Ring. At first he's mostly comic relief, a big pot stuck in the ground asking for help. But as the game progresses, he starts showing up in more serious moments. Alexander also has big dreams. He wants to become a strong and admirable warrior. He throws himself into battles he's not ready for, he gets hurt, but he always gets back up, and he keeps going. You watch him grow throughout the game even if he never really catches up to you. Then towards the end of the game, he challenges you to a duel, not out of anger but out of respect. He wants to test himself against the best, and when you beat him, he thanks you. His body breaks apart, and all that's left is a shard of him, offered as a gift. What makes Alexander stand out is his weird combination of humor, honor, and tragedy. He wasn't the strongest nor the smartest, but he was brave, and that alone makes him unforgettable. Blythe is one of the coolest characters in Elden Ring. He's a half-wolf and the loyal guard to Ranni. He's your companion during Ranni's questline, and he seems like someone who has everything figured out. But his loyalty is also his curse. He was literally made to serve Ranni, but most importantly, he was made to serve the Two Fingers as well. Blythe was programmed by the Two Fingers to always serve Ranni, except if she were ever to turn against them or the Golden Order. Now Ranni, doing the exact opposite of what they wanted, probably started driving Blythe to madness. But Blythe, being so loyal, refuses to harm her and kept himself under control. However, he can only do this for so long. So at the end of her questline, Blythe is left behind, with no purpose, no path, and slowly the madness took over. You find him waiting outside her tower trying to talk himself out of doing something, and when he sees you, he immediately attacks you. Not out of malice or grudge, it was just that he couldn't hold himself back any longer. Because of this, both of you fought and he had to put him down. What makes this sad is that he didn't betray anyone. He was just overtaken by a madness that was implanted within him since birth. Something he was delaying for a long time and something he couldn't even control. And even at the very end, he was still trying his best not to hurt or go after Ranni. That's not just sad, it's tragic. You find Millicent dying in a forgotten church deep in Caelid. She's weak, barely able to speak, and completely consumed by the Scarlet Rot. She isn't some powerful warrior or a major figure in the world, she's just a sick, lonely girl trying to hang on. At first she seemed like a side character you'll cure and forget about, but her story ends up becoming one of the most emotional journeys in Elden Ring. After you give her the unalloyed gold needle, she starts to recover. Slowly she finds the strength to stand and fight, and as you keep crossing paths with her throughout the game, you see her grow, not just as a fighter, but as a person. She starts thinking for herself, making her own decisions, and choosing her own path. She's no longer just someone cursed by the rot, but instead she became someone who actively pushes against it, trying to define who she is beyond her suffering. Eventually she makes her way to the Halig Tree. There she faces off against her sisters, other daughters of Malenia who were affected by the same curse, and she wins. Here she proves that she's her own person and not a puppet destined to do what others wanted her to become, but in the end, it still kills her. Millicent dies quickly, not in some epic cutscene, but lying next to the pool of rot, completely at peace. Her final words are a thank you for helping her find purpose before it was too late. There's no big payoff or anything, she just dies. It's quiet, it's tragic, but hey, at least she died with purpose. At the end of Bloodborne, after everything you've been through, you're given a strange offer. Gaemon offers to release you from the dream. If you accept, he beheads you on the spot, and you wake up in the real world without any knowledge of what happened, and the game just ends. If you refuse, you're forced to fight him in a beautiful, eerie field of flowers. But the fight, while epic, isn't really a celebration. It's more for mercy killing, or maybe mercy for him. You see, Gehrman was the original hunter, the first to answer the call when beasts began to overrun Yharnam, but over time he lost everything, and eventually his freedom. He became a puppet of the moon presence trapped in a dream world for what might be centuries, and he's forced to guide new hunters through the dream over and over again. He's tired, worn down, haunted by old memories and the choices that led to his endless loop. By the time you fight him, Gehrman isn't just an old man with a scythe, he's someone who's begging for an end. You can see then how he talks while sleeping. Fighting him is sad because it doesn't feel like a triumph, it feels like putting a lost soul to rest, as he's not really your enemy, just someone who gave everything and ended up cursed for it. And it feels like during the fight, Gehrman is actually trying to prevent you from being in the same situation as him. But at the end, we come out on top and Gehrman's soul can finally rest. So despite this being a somewhat emotional moment, it's still bittersweet at the end of the day. In the base game of Dark Souls 1, Artorias was mentioned to be this epic hero who stopped the spread of the Abyss. He was known as the Abyss Walker, a knight who faced darkness head on. People looked up to him and everything, and he was everything a true warrior should be. But when you travel back in time in the DLC, you start to discover the truth. Artorias didn't really win, he actually lost. He fell to the abyss and he gave up his shield to protect his companion Sif, and by the time you find him, which is pretty early on, he's broken physically and mentally. He's not the hero the stories speak of. I mean, he technically still is a hero, but he ended up failing and was consumed by the very thing he fought against. What's crazy is that we were the ones who actually stopped the spread of the abyss. But still, even in that broken state, he kept fighting. Something inside of him refuses to quit, and when you finally bring him down, it doesn't feel like victory, but instead like mercy killing. You get his soul, you get his gear, but you don't feel triumphant. It feels like you just put down an old legend to rest. A man who gave up everything and got nothing in return. And that's why this moment stuck with me, because yeah, sure, he inspired a lot of people later on in the other games, but knowing the real truth of his fate makes this story a tragic one. So those were the saddest moments that stood out to me throughout all the Souls games. Let me know down below which moments stood out to you the most. Anyways, be sure to like and subscribe, only if you want to. And apart from that, I hope you guys have a good one.